Michelle O'Neill here, and I am thrilled that you are here today with me on the meeting place. If this is your first time, let me know by doing hashtag newbie. If you're here on the replay, make sure you give me a hashtag replay so that I know that you were here and I can just give you a holler, okay? So I am thrilled. I am Michelle O'Neill, your purposeful life coach and your boundary strategist. And I love teaching and inspiring women who are heart centered, successful, high achieving women to create that unique blueprint for having a meaningful life. And I'm here with you today, but wait a minute. Stop. Just stop. If you're not ready to get serious and do a little deep thinking today, maybe you need to come back and revisit this. But if you're ready, come on in, grab a seat, and let's get down to talking about that inner child on today's The Meeting Place. Now, I think maybe the way most people say the inner child, they're talking about her a little more differently than I am. Most people equate the inner child with the wounded you, the wounded child in you. But when I talk about the inner child, what I'm really talking about is that little girl in you. You know, that little girl that sometimes you just want to snatch up? You know, that little girl that your mom say, oh, little girl, no, we're not acting like that here. That's the little girl that I'm talking about here today on The Meeting Place. And that girl is the one that we can always call the brat. And so we want to talk about how to address that little girl in our lives because she really rears her head up a lot. And just recently, I started to really realize how much, even as adults, she comes into play in our actions. And this is a constant fight that we have to fight. So don't think just because you think you conquered her once, you set her down in timeout, and you knew what and you control the situation, that she's not going to rear her head again. So I want us to really dig into this little girl and grab a hand of her. So fact number one, I want you to understand that our emotions run rapid when we're sick. And so that's why she really came to head for me this week. And I started remembering exactly, this girl thinks she can control me, right? So what am I talking about is that's when our feelings are easily hurt, right? We want what we want. We become that brat. We have these pitying parties. We run rapid. We have tantrums, these inner tantrums that we always put. It's like someone says something to us. You ever get sick and someone says something to you and it's like, oh, that wasn't nice. And they're looking at you like, I always talk like this. I didn't mean anything by it. But all of a sudden, things really hurt your feelings, or someone says something to you and you go, I don't want that. And it's like, oh my gosh, who was that? That's what I'm talking about. And that really happens when you're sick, even more so, because it's hard to control our emotions at that time. And let me tell you why. What happens to our bodies and our brains is it's fighting the infections or whatever is going on in your body. All your little receptors are going to what it needs to go to help fight your body and keep it healthy. And so those emotions have that time to just have free reign because they're not being controlled the way they usually do, or our ability to have a full grasp on them isn't as strong at that time because we're so focused on what needs to happen, and that's taking care of our bodies in that time and responding to the infection and the sickness and fighting back. So we forget to keep a handle on our emotions. And what that is that little girl is the uncontrolled emotional side of you. That's who we're talking about. And we have to keep a good harnessed better word to use, on that little girl in our life. Because she don't only come out in sickness. Oh, she rears her head sometime during our daily interactions. And have you ever noticed she comes out more around certain people? And say often the first reaction you want to have, or the first reaction that you have, is that little girl. But most times we harness it, we reel it in before we actually react on that. So am I talking to someone who knows what I'm talking about? I mean, raise your hand. Let me know in the comments if you've been or you've seen that side of you come to play. How, what a better word to say, she came to play. And so we have to be able to control her and to snatch her up and say, that's not the way I want to act. Because a lot of times she sees the things as the world according to her. There's a lot of times I'm talking to my grandchildren and I said, oh, we're in that mode of the world according to you. Because everything we see is based on our small concept of the world, our small concept of what's around us, because we haven't taken in all the other things, or we haven't experienced enough to see outside of that. And so you see this most in teenagers and in babies and toddlers. You see this play a lot in the adolescent years, when everything is according to the world, according to you, your emotions, how you feeling, how you feel you are in the world, who you feel you are in the world. And that little girl also comes to play in our lives on a daily basis. And it's up to us to maintain control in our house. And so my question to you is, are you maintaining that control in your house? And so let me give you some instances. My little twin grandbaby, I heard her talking to her mom on the phone the other day in the background while I was talking to her mom. You know, I'm always talking about talking to my daughter because we talk all the time. And so she was talking and I heard her in the background whimpering. And her mom says, Ava, what's wrong with you? And Ava says, I don't know. You ever feel that way? You just feel sad, irritable, frustrated, and you really can't put your finger on it. The things that we need to do as an adult is to ask ourselves the right questions. When did those feelings first started coming? When did I start feeling this way? Why am I feeling this way? Because what happens when we see the world as according to what we're talking about, we start reflecting those feelings on others. And what am I talking about here? Have you ever talked to someone and you've had a fear and you go, I don't want you to do that because I'm afraid you'll get hurt. Now, are you reflecting that because of an experience you had before and you're afraid that that same experience will happen to them? You know, like afraid whenever someone leaves your presence or something, that you may not see them again. We have these irrational fears, but that's your fear. So one of the best things we can do before we project our fears or our worries on someone else is ask them, does it bother you being in the dark? No, I kind of like the dark. It's soothing to me. Then don't project your fear of the dark on them, because now they start questioning themselves. Maybe there is something here that I should be fearful of. Maybe there is something that I don't know, because she wouldn't be fearful. if I shouldn't be fearful? So ask your little girl, what's wrong, babe? Why are you fearful? Why are you feeling that way? And start digging into that so that you can control her better. So I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying these are emotions that we allow to run rapid because we're not dealing with them. It's the little girl in us who is sometimes that spoiled brat, and we're not calling her up. We have to be reminded to do some adulting. And who rules your house? If this was a real child in your house, would you allow them to scream and throw tantrums and tell you what they will not do? Would you allow them to run your house, tell you what they will eat and won't eat? Um, Most parents don't. When we're adulting, we do not let that child rule our house. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is don't let your inner child, your little girl, rule your house. Teach her control. If you notice, I said teach her control. I didn't say control her. I said teach her control. Snatch her up and remind her what's the appropriate behavior. And I'm not saying negate what you're feeling. Teach her, allow her to control her feelings, but also understand that it's okay to vent. So the next time you're sitting there and you kind of feeling like the roll your eyes feeling or the that's not fair feeling, allow yourself that moment, because we're all going to go through it. And I've learned the best way to deal with it is to call it out. Yeah, this is the way I feel. But the question is, do you act on that emotion? That's the difference between letting that little girl rule your house or stepping into adulting and saying, this is the proper behavior. It's all about self-control and learning and teaching that little girl self-control. I'm not saying that those feelings will never come up again. I'm not saying that those feelings are wrong. We are just to apply self-control. And it's something that is learned. It's not innate. And it's not easy for everyone. But you have to remember or understand how to snatch that little girl up. I hate that phrase. Well, actually, I like that phrase, but I'm sure I'm going to get some comments back about snatching her up. But I remember that term because that's the term that my mom used to use for me. And so I don't want to keep you long. I guess in a way we could have really said it's all about self-control. It's about learning to harness our emotions and to deal with them and not let that little girl run rapid. So until next time, I would love to see you come back next week to the meeting place. Until then, I'll say like, subscribe. My mind went blank. Whatever it is, comment. But I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, come back next week on the meeting place. Take care. Bye-bye.